All right, we have just published over multiple parts on Work to Game. We will have published all of the 3 sections of this live letter, 6.5 hours, brought to you in segments. The full version will be over on Crystal Core Radio as a single 1 hour just over version. You can, of course, it is live translated. Go find the 6.5 hour version out there. But there are 3 effective parts here and some big takeaways for people that don't even have the time for an hour. This was the first of the 2 remaining live letters before Endwalker. The second one will be November 5th, and we'll go over Disciple of Hand and Land and PvP changes. This one was going over the job changes up first, the battle system, and just system changes in general, as well as some upcoming updates. And they said there would be a media tour in between that would be, according to Foxconn, mid-October, and would have lots of Western influencers that Yoshi P looks forward to talking MMO shop with. And that everything shown today is still in development. Job adjustments. The job trailer is out. It is like 15 minutes long. It's freaking awesome. The general guidelines here that led their thoughts is that 5.0 was a success. They want to build on that, and they want to start making the tempo of when the way playing one job works feel the same if you switch to other jobs or when jobs play together in parties. So primary abilities will realign around intervals of 60 and 120 seconds. But not all abilities. Black Mage, for example, just doesn't really line up. The tanks, using defensive cooldowns is going to make it to where using them optimally will grant bigger benefits for off tanks or main tanks. Ranged attacks do not break combos for melee jobs or tanks. Physical and magical damage was calculated a little differently, and so to bring those more in line on the back end, they had to actually lower the potencies on physicals because they had to buff the way physical is calculated on the back end. And all tanks, gap closers, are now the warrior's lovely 20 yalms. Paladin has some sweet big swords that'll drop down. Requiescat is now going to cast the same regardless of the amount of remaining mana, and then is going to result in a 3 attack combo, starting with Confiteor, and then a Holy, and then it looked like some big new thing. Warrior is now your Storm's Eye can be triggered. You can now trigger your damage effect by AoE combos. Onslaught and Upheaval do not cost gauge, and Onslaught has 3 charges, and there is a new action inside of Inner Release, which has been released from a 90-second cooldown to a 60-second cooldown. It looked a little shorter, but it's hard to say. Nation Flash will also help as an off-tank. Dark Knight, Salted Earth will now cast on yourself, no need for a macro, and will have a new action available to it. Simulacrum will make your buddy have new actions that acquire with you, and Delirium moved from 90 seconds down to 60. You also have a single target to the Blackest Night type defensive that looked neat. We don't really know what it does. Gunbreaker moved to 3 cartridges, and those 3 cartridges will be used. Your Gnashing Fang combo will now have the Gnashing Fang, and the Savage Fang and the Wicked Talon will all be 1 button, so that'll cut 2 buttons off your bar. And then Continuation will also be able to be used after Burst Strike, that non-Gnashing Fang combo, so that should make that a little more interesting. In Melee, Feint is now the counter Addle. It will reduce damage from physical and magical, but will reduce more from physical. Addle will do more from magical. So those counter each other for the melee and the magical there. Remember everything I said during the tank one. And Dragoon. AoE rotation expanded. New action after you complete combo actions. In general, it seems like if you're successfully completing combos, this game is going to add big, shiny new things for you. Blood of the Dragon is now a trait. There's an extra charge on the gap closer ability. I'm drawing a blank on it. Let's keep moving. Blood Litany on Lance Charge at 60 seconds. And then Monk. Monk was the biggest change of the melee here. Massive, massive change. Chakras available at a lower level. So they must have watched a Mr. Happy video, or he must just be in tune with what this job needed to do. When conditions are fulfilled, you will, with perfect balance, which is no longer 90 seconds, down to 40 seconds, you're going to be casting things that will fill out, kind of like the Astro, where you'll fill out these little abilities, and based on those, you will go into a Masterful Blitz that is tied to an element, like a yin and a yang, and that will result in these big elementals. Twin Strike and Twin Snakes are no longer positional, and you are losing your Gap Closer Shoulder Tackle to be replaced by another type of Gap Closer that'll have kind of these multiple charges and can be used to like go towards an ally or go towards an enemy. And then this was also the first time they showed some gameplay where we were aware of just how big the stat drop was. So be aware of that. I'll state it again in a minute. Samurai just became more Samurai. Jinpu and Shifu or whatever can also be applied on AoE combos. Easier to keep your damage buff windows up. Across the board, it just looked like they said, we like that it's a pure DPS. We want to keep it a pure DPS. It's going to build on where it is. No massive change here. Ninja's going to have actions linked to Reishan, Doton, Huton. It's going to be easier to keep Huton up, and you lose your dot. No more Shadow Fang with actions added to Bunshin. So more Ninja, less Rogue, but it looks good. Reaper was all new, so of course we didn't know what it did. It will be able to apply a buff to a party like a Bard, but other than that, they said it's closer to being a pure DPS, just not as much as a Samurai. You use your Scythe in tandem with your avatar, and you're going to have two gauges. You're going to have a soul gauge where you do things to build up a soul gauge. The soul gauge gets used by your avatar. You guys work together, and that fills the bottom gauge there, your shroud gauge, and then you and your avatar kind of merge and become one, and that's what burns your shroud gauge for even stronger combos. It was hard to see just how small the hits were. Just once again stating the stat squish is massive here. Behind it, if you're watching it, note that there are some islands around Thavnar. Wouldn't it be cool if Thavnar was where the island sanctuary existed? That's just speculation. We are worried that it would be too difficult was something they said with how many people were interested. They said, you know what? We really like the idea that it's something worth mastering and getting into. It will not have positionals until you're with your avatar. And if you want to see what its LB3 looks like, go back and watch Xenos in the benchmark. Physical ranged, we have the magical and ranged parity that we were talking about. They said they called this section Orthodox updates, just in line. Bard is getting 3 songs, which will make new actions for your party-wide buffs. There will be a new action after Apex Arrow. Machinist is going to get a new action named Chainsaw, and your lovely robot queen there is going to get an additional action. Reassemble is going to go to 2 charges. I don't know if they're going to have some different kind of damage windows adjust to be more in line with that 60 or 120 second. Dancer, weapon kills such as like cascade skills such as cascade and all that will also be on AoE. And there's a new action after technical finish, improvisation, and devilment. Just trying to make all their skills more useful in more situations, make the AoE and single target an easier thing to balance with each other so that people don't sometimes feel like it should just be almost 2 separate hotbars. They are still making adjustments to this role, and they said Bard for sure is still being included in that. Bard was noted explicitly as something that they are still working on. And then they are definitely not sure of where they're at with the damage. Magical DPS. What I said about Adel earlier, moving into Black Mage. That was it. Enochian's now a trait. This is automatically applied when you cast Astral Fire or Umbral Ice. Massive change. And then under certain conditions, swapping between those, you're gonna be able to kind of trigger new actions where there's even one that like seemed to combine ice and fire that went off in there, but it will remain a pure DPS. And then the proc rates are under like fire, they run longer because you're going to have more to do in there. And then they noted that in JP they ran out of suffixes, so they had to go get that kind of approved. I would love to see suffixes here on the NA side of things. There will be some charges added for sharp cast. Red Mage, things like Scorch, new actions after Scorch, Verflare, Verholy, and Scorch are also all now AoE and will be available as part of the AoE rotation. There is a defensive party-wide buff thing added, looked like a big shield. The black mana and white mana usage is reduced, but also takes longer to build, meaning your melee combo will run longer, but your non-melee combo will run longer. And so it seemed like they were really starting to lean towards kind of slowing those phases down so you don't feel like you're getting pushed into a phase when it doesn't make sense for a boss fight. And then magnification is going from 110 seconds up to that 120. Summoner is a new job. It's a new job. So delete your dots, and you are now going to literally summon things. So you'll be able to summon Garuda, Titan, and Ifrit, not just Aegis. And when you summon one, you have basically these 3 Auracite, Magicite type things. You activate one, they come out, they hit hard, and then all of your abilities become like elementally infused with them. So your abilities take on kind of their personality. And once you've summoned each of them, once you've depleted them in whatever order you want, you would then summon Phoenix. Phoenix would send you through that phase, and then all 3 pop back up to use in whatever order you want. The order, they said, will be something that you master as you need to kind of predict the encounter. So whatever order you want. The icons and everything for your different spells, that all auto swaps because the abilities are augmented by them. So it actually really only looked like you were really using 16 core buttons, but it had a lot of power to it. It will keep a res. They did consider removing it. Aegis will be able to be resized and also will be able to glamour to these different ones. And so you're gonna, it's just a lot to learn. It's massive. They wanted the summons to feel really meaningful. It does feel like a summoner. Healers, we are splitting them into barrier healers and direct healers. Their offensive abilities will drop to 1.5 second casts, make those easier to use. Their limit break will move from 30 yalm range up to 50 yalm range, make that easier to do. And then there are new actions added to healers for single target buffs for each healer. White Mage is functionally and visually distinct restorative field action. So they basically have a turret lily that kind of seems to come down, and then fluid aura is gone. The bind is gone. So they just stayed a pure healer, said, we're going to lead the way into this thing. We're ready to go. And their big shield action, Divine Benison, there is going to become a charge action because, they'll need that in specific situations. So they kind of hold that a little more. Astro, stances are gone. Full-time diurnal now. There is going to be a neutral sect you can opt into for some barrier options. It is the other pure healer. And divination is going to kind of adjust so it's not so luck based. It seems like the seals now that you build along the way, those are going to determine what your self buff is, and the divination will go out. It looked like it's going out basically the same, but we didn't see tooltip on that. Redraw is no longer a charge thing. It'll be there once per draw, and minor arcana changed. You literally have a second card UI, so we don't know exactly how that works, but it looks like minor arcana kind of got its own slot. Your AoE looks like it's going to be using that to have an offensive option, and they want it to kind of rival but be different than the White Mage Holy. Scholar, they said very little about. It was kind of like Bard. They just barely touched on it. It is the barrier healer. There's going to be a unique action that will allow them to enhance movement even in combat, like a peloton for combat. Very powerful single target buff. Didn't go much over it. I expect them maybe to have more. Maybe we'll have more at the media tour. Some of these jobs just seemed like they weren't ready to present as much as other jobs. We got a lot more information, and I think Bard and Scholar were the two that I felt I got the least about. Sage, you're going to be attacking and healing at the same time. This is your final barrier healer. I think at this point they were also tired. They'd gone 3.5 hours on this first segment of 3 in what was meant to be a 4-hour stream. You're going to basically pick an ally, and you're going to use something called Cardia. That's going to make them kind of like a focus target. And then when you attack, say you put that on the tank, it would also be healing the tank. You can even Cardia yourself, so that might make them broken in a deep dungeon. We'll just have to see. And as you attack, that kind of is going, you're going to draw upon these different resources for healing, for buffs, for damage. And so you even have a resource called Gall, which is going to be what executes your barriers. There's a gap closer. The gap closer was called Icarus. So I cannot imagine that this job would ever fly too close to the sun. And we move into part 2, battle adjustments. You people that use Savage Raid Finder over on JP, there will be a guaranteed one of each healer in your parties, and it could make the parties take longer to form. If that's an issue, go into Party Finder if you want to circumvent that. In Party Finder, you will the healers now show as split by the 2 types, and there will be new options to align with party members that have weekly rewards, or don't have weekly rewards remaining. They've already gotten them or they haven't. The search results will also no longer include job results that there's like a limit to one per job, and you can't join. So they're just going to kind of clean up Party Finder. The duty reward adjustments are just honoring the fact that we now have a ton of freaking jobs. There's going to be a ton of different kinds of weapons. So in addition to on trials there being an original weapon dropping, a random weapon dropping, there will be a weapon coffer as well that somebody will be able to open and get, whatever weapon they want. The 4th turn in high-end raids, all the way through the 3.x series, will now drop a weapon coffer in addition to the weapon reward, and the high-end through the 4.x series, Stormblood there, will drop gear kind of like the gear and the accessories will work like the coffers do in Eden Savage. Conditions and enhancements, if there's a proc rate, like I said during the Black Mage, those can now be isolated on your HUD. So if you want to, you can have your buffs, your debuffs, your status effects, and the procs can all be separate things. So that's a lot closer to something like a weak auras, and you can make that nice 200%, put it either near your gauge or put it near where the enemy cast bar is, or whatever makes sense for you. That'll be a lot easier. Ground targeting functionality got a massive set of optional updates where if you want to, you can make it to where instead of clicking, you would press the ability, and then when you're ready to use it, you would press the button again. It also, you can set it so that you can't drag it beyond its maximum range. So if I try to drag it to its maximum range in front of me, I can shoot my mouse off into the future, and what it'll do is it'll go to maximum range and stop. It won't go out and say that's not a valid position. So hopefully that's really great. That'll be added in character configuration. The display party target on your cast bar. So when you're casting something like Raise, it'll show what party number it is. It's the second person, so that'll be the tank, because it's always yourself and then the tank. Or if I'm targeting which monster I'm targeting, because those are letters. So I'm targeting the third monster that we're fighting, which is monster C. And so you can see what people are targeting. And I think that'll be really helpful, at least for like red mages, not rezzing somebody that the white mage has already been hard casting on. I think that'll be really, really nice. Health bars. Previously, you had an option to either show people that had an amount of health missing, but not all of it, or all health bars, including people that are full. Now, if you show people that are less than full, that will include people that are incapacitated, which will make them easier to see in places like relic grinds, because you do have an action as a healer. You need to res those people, and that's really great, especially in areas where we like lose metal and things like that. As a reminder, Unreals are temporary pieces of content where we get a raid brought back just for that patch. We are currently in Leviathan, and so for the 6.0 patch cycle, we will not get an Unreal, but they would like to bring it back for 6.1. It says scheduled for 6.1, but they didn't say which one it would be. Also, as a reminder, belts are gone. They're going away, but you don't have to do anything if you don't want to. What will go away is the ability to extract materia from them, because they'll no longer be able to be spirit bonded. You will not be able to, so if you have it at 100% spirit bonded and 6.0 hits, you just lose that one free materia. You cannot buy and sell them on the market board. You cannot turn them in for leaves, even if you already picked up the leave that says it wants belts. You cannot turn them in for supply missions, the crafting missions, and you cannot open up a coffer that only has belts in it once we're in 6.0. Any belt that you had equipped to you, equipped to a retainer, or in your armory chest, since those will no longer have belt options, will be sent to the Calamity Salvager. Any other inventory will stay where it is. The Calamity Salvager, it'll keep who crafted it, it'll keep its materia. It's your belt. You can get those back. You will be able to retrieve the materia out of them. You'll be able to vendor those belts when you're done with them. You'll be able to descent them, turn them in for expert deliveries for grand companies, or of course you can just throw them in the trash. The speed belt from Eureka will be exchangeable for a ring, so that is protected. And now we talk about downscaling. Downscaling, the difference in attributes from level 50 to 80 has been reduced, so that's going to help bring that all down to numbers that are not so hard on the server. HP and damage are reduced roughly to a fifth. My paladin has 190,000 health or something like that. Their paladin at level 80 that they showed had 47,000 health. Meal potency, materia, and medicine has also been reduced. Adjustments are to maintain balance with consideration for this, but they did note that there may be occasionally times where it doesn't feel quite right. Having lived through all these a couple times in WoW, they said it was fine within a few minutes. I have had that experience in the past. And when you were going into undersized parties to make sure that things that feel like they have a little too much life feel right, they actually give you an enhanced echo now, which will kind of handle that for you, that slight discrepancy. XP gains are also now downscaled, and XP is all going to drop at once in things like dungeons. So the trash will no longer drop experience, and that amount of experience will all be applied to the boss, so you just get it all in one go. I think that should work fine in all modern dungeons. In ARR, it means you'd want to kind of skip optional trash. I think for me, it's skippable pulls in dungeons where people are already mad that somebody's not doing it the right way. So I think Praetorium and Castromar, where I think those are two dungeons that I already think need to be reworked, and this I think just further outlines that. This should kind of clean that up. And then if you drop, you didn't get anything for trash till the boss. So if you drop party, like, you miss out on, you got nothing. From here, we go into part 3, high quality items. We are no longer going to have high quality from gathered items, enemy drops, token exchange, or non-craftable materials in some content. If you have high quality items at the time of 6.0, they will remain high quality, but you can always right-click lower quality. You can do that right now. That way they'll stack. They won't do anything special. They'll just keep that icon. So you'll want to get rid of those. There will still be crafted high quality for the intermediate steps in gear, which work functionally the exact same. Gathering classes that have high quality abilities, obviously, are going to be adjusted, and they said it'll increase yield. I don't really know how that works with the fact that we already have things that increase yield. And then fishing will have a different parameter than high quality. I would love to see something like weight be more of a factor. And then quests, challenge logs, and achievements requiring high quality will be adjusted, but this will all be more addressed in the November 5th live letter. Adjustments for teleport fees. They are calculated based on distance, but they were previously capped at $9.99. That cap's been lifted. They showed us a set from Costa del Sol to Kogane, it was $14.42. To Limsa, it was $2.15. To Crystarium, it was $4.98. To Camp Bronze Lake, it was $1.66. They said sometimes their adjustments, it went down. Sometimes, obviously, it went up because it went above $9.99. And, I know people are going to be upset about this. They spent a long time talking about why it's important that, we're constantly introducing money in. We've got to be constantly taking money out. The teleportation tickets will be changing. Sound like they were moving to like regional or multiple tiers or something like that. I hope they're stored in a currency tab and I'm not having to carry multiple sets, because I do think this will bring value to hunts in a new way for more people. And they know things are already inflated. They don't want to stop pulling money out and make it get worse. The Aethernet UI inside cities work way better, way better. You can see them, you mouse over them, and it pulls you to where they go. You can see which quests. It's a live map. You can also just click where you want to go on that map, and it'll send you there. That whole interface is just way, way, way better. Fishers who have been working on big fish. The Fisher's Intuition will now remain after logging out. This is a fix for those of you trying to get big fish and you're waiting for certain weather conditions or whatever, and you're getting logged out automatically. That's just a fix to avoid penalizing you. It's what they're doing for now, and that is a reminder that the auto log out feature does stay in place going into an expansion typically, and this is definitely a time that, if anything, things should be more strict on that, not less, because of the number of people interested in being logged into the game. DC Visit will be after 6.0. Even though they showed it on the Endwalker intro screen at the beginning of the live letter, they are looking at how to upgrade servers, how to do all this. They even looked at a potential cloud partner, and then from there they talked about all the upcoming stuff. On October 2nd, Yoshi is going to be giving a talk. It will be live translated. Presentation on RPGs and everything looks really interesting. Tokyo Game Show will be October 3rd. He'll be touring some houses. He'll be, I think, the closing act for Square Enix. November 5th being that next live letter for Disciple of Hand, Disciple Land, PvP, and system-related updates. The weapon design competition going on right now will end October 4th. 50% off of collectible editions if you want to go, if you missed any of them, if you want to go back and get your ARR collectible edition and all that, that's all 50% off through September 30th. There's a whole bunch of new merch pushed, so definitely go out to the store and see when different dates and stuff are. There was a ton of new merch. There always is at these things. So I'm sure some of it you think is cool, and some of you're like, why does somebody want that? Well, that's inverted for somebody else. There's a ton of ways to support this game. And Final Fantasy 15 crossover event ends October 18th, and then October 19th we'll go back into the Dragon Quest collab event from there until November 11th. And I didn't quite make it. I was trying to do this in under 20 minutes, but I hope that was fast enough. If you want a longer version, if that was too fast for you, hop over to Work to Game and watch whatever section jumped out to you. Enjoy these next several weeks. If you need to take a break, take your break. If you need to sprint and get through Shadowbringers, sprint and get through Shadowbringers. Final Fantasy is there to be enjoyed in whatever way it is fun for you. What a great time to be playing it. What a great time to be a fan of the genre or a member of the community, new or old. Take care. I'll see you next time.